Welcome, everybody. This is episode 3 of the On TRAC podcast brought to you by OriginTrail. This is, of course, the show where we bring you all the latest and the juiciest developments from the OriginTrail ecosystem and the verifiable internet for artificial intelligence that the OriginTrail technology is crucially enabling. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, whether you're here on Twitter, X, whether you're here on YouTube, or whether you're watching this, listening to this after the fact, 12 months, 10 years, 1 week from now, whenever. We're just happy to have you here. As always, my name is Jonathan. I will be the fearless navigator of this podcast. But the real experts, the real mega minds here are the OriginTrail co-founders, Žiga, Tomaž, and Branimir. And thank you to them for joining us today. So this month, we're going to be unpacking and laying out the overarching foundation for OriginTrail's vision for the future of artificial intelligence, which is built atop the concept of the verifiable internet for artificial intelligence. And we're going to be going into some very exciting things, the synergies between crypto, the internet, AI technologies, DRAG. What does that mean? You're going to find out. And as per usual, this episode is being recorded live. Afterward, we'll be taking the audio from this recording, editing it, and uploading it to all the Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the podcast platforms for your listening pleasure. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions for today's podcast in advance. I'm going to be doing things a little bit different this month, experimenting a little bit with the format. So we're going to save some time at the end for audience questions. I'll be incorporating some into the episode, the main discussion as well, but we'll be making sure to save some time at the end to get through the questions that you all submitted to make sure that everybody's questions are heard and has the opportunity to be included in the show. So if you want to get all the juicy alpha and details that we may not have the time to get into in the main part of the conversation, make sure you stick to the very end because I've seen the questions and there are definitely some good ones. So without further ado, let's kick this conversation off here with the OriginTrail team on the topic of the verifiable internet for artificial intelligence. So I guess, first of all, how's everyone doing? How's your day going?
Oh man, I thought you'll never ask. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. How about yourself?
Almost sounded like James Brown there.
Yeah, my day's going well. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Brooklyn, so can't complain. It's a Friday. And happy Easter as well to everybody who celebrates Easter weekend. How about you, Žiga? Branimir, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I just finally landed in another place in Europe. So I had traveled from east to west. Right now in southern Spain, just half an hour parked here. So doing good. The sun is still shining, although it's quite late here in Europe. So cannot complain.
Your turn, Branimir.
Yeah, likewise. Also on the move here, making my way towards Europe from Asia. So it's actually quite late where I'm at. But yeah, they're all doing great things and seeing a lot of great progress in the last couple of days. Just cannot be more excited than this. So looking forward to diving deeper in the episode.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was preparing for this episode a few days ago, and there's just been so much new developments that have come out in the last couple of days that some of the questions that I came up with probably aren't even as interesting as what we will likely be focusing on more so, which is the more recent developments in the past couple of days. So I guess just to kick this conversation off, before we get into super specifics of some of this stuff, I was reading the Whitepaper 3.0, and I think it's the very first line of the Whitepaper is a quote from Dr. Bob Metcalfe, OriginTrail advisor, Ethernet inventor, Internet pioneer, And he said, "We live in an abundant time. Sorry, we live in a time of abundant connectivity and, alas, abundant misinformation. The OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph is an evolving tool for finding the truth in knowledge. In particular, we see knowledge graphs improving the fidelity of artificial intelligence." And one thing that stuck out to me about that quote, and this seems like it's kind of a overarching philosophy of the OriginTrail project, is that it's a tool for finding truth in knowledge. So to kick things off, this is a very big question to start the podcast off with, but what does this mean? What do you mean when you say that OriginTrail finds truth in knowledge?
It is indeed quite a broad thing to tackle, and even when we were speaking with Dr. Metcalf on the topic, the conversation can get pretty broad, but always very interesting. So, as a concept, truth is something that's an ever elusive thing, right? So you always kind of are catching up to it a little bit, and so we can never. There's no magic wand to just really tap on something and say, okay, this is true or this is not true, because also there's a frame of reference that will determine one or the other. And the thing, though, that is very important is that we can leverage some of the recent developments that are striving the convergence of crypto, internet, and artificial intelligence that can really help us advance certain concepts that can bring us closer to having the trusted foundation upon which we can decide what is truthful or not, having full information and oversight over into what we're actually consuming as an information. So each of those kind of components that I mentioned as a convergence is a crucial element to achieve that. So we have the crypto, we have internet, and we have the artificial intelligence, and all of those kind of fields are now converging. And then when we kind of look at what OriginTrail brings to the table, it really catalyzes that convergence with the capability of having the trusted knowledge foundation. So where we know who issued a piece of information or who issued a piece of knowledge, we can determine when it was issued. We can determine that it hasn't been changed, it hasn't been tampered with, and we can create it in a way that it leverages the internet's connectivity, so it's discoverable without censorship. So at the end, we can use something like artificial intelligence to help us determine not what really we want to filter out and kind of take as a truth. And at the same time, we can also create systems which tap into incentivization of creating new knowledge. And this is where the big opportunity also opens up, which is unprecedented until today, is that we can leverage crypto today to design systems in which we will have incentivized actors provide and create new knowledge. And this new knowledge can be done either by humans or by artificial agents. So to kind of cut it short, I'd say all of these elements we have to kind of really look into, and from the convergence perspective, crypto, internet, and the artificial intelligence, leverage all of it to the full extent, and then we can come to the situation we'll have the clarity to make the decision what is actually a truthful or trustworthy enough information for us to consume or for our systems to use to make certain decisions.
So the main focus of the white paper, correct me if I'm wrong here, but reading through it, it's kind of divided up into, not divided up, but it tackles three sort of specific issues surrounding artificial intelligence, and then lays out the ways that the OriginTrail protocol, the centralized knowledge graph, everything that comes along with that seeks to help resolve some of these issues. So that would be misinformation, bias, and some issues around data ownership. So what does it mean to say that an AI is Like, an AI is just a computer, right? It's just a program, right? So how can a software be biased? And then what does it mean to say, or I guess why does it spit out misinformation? Because if it has access to all of the most valuable knowledge and information that the world has ever produced, you would think that it would have the correct answers to everything. It just has to go to those sources and look at them and say, okay, well, I don't know, Rome burned down and Rome collapsed, the empire collapsed in whatever year or era, and super random example, but it might tell you, might get that completely wrong. It could be, 1,000 years off. So why does AI have this problem to begin with?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it comes down, if we don't want to go too deep into the tech and confuse everybody, but it comes down to the way that current neural AI operates. And it operates on this premise of really generating answers based on well, if you think chatbots, for example, like ChatGPT, they would get some question. Let's say you could ask about Rome or whatever, and it would give you like a sequence of words, or they call them tokens, which is the most plausible one according to it. What is the most plausible according to it? Well, that depends on what it was trained on, which goes into this bias question. So obviously, every source that you can think of for today of information, like a news media outlet, for example, you can consider biased to an extent. I'm sure people kind of see that more and more every day. So if you think of that, like train it on just CNN data, it's going to contain some CNN bias. But not just that, it's a limited amount of information, and then it's going to confidently hallucinate answers sometimes. And this is just common. It's actually a feature of LLMs that they hallucinate. And where this basically comes to play within the verifiable internet of AI is to actually give these models a way to do exactly what you said, to find the right sources, the right pieces of knowledge in an organized way. And the perfect technology for this is really the decentralized knowledge graph. So it essentially connects different pieces of knowledge that are structured in something called symbolic AI way. This is the other branch of AI. So together with neural and symbolic AI, you can actually achieve exactly this. You can give AI a verifiable source, a verifiable, rather knowledge base, global knowledge base that anybody can contribute in, so that the AI can actually find the right knowledge, understand the source, actually understand the context within, not just about that source, but like what that source, how it fits into other pieces of information, how it relates to other sources. It just connects everything together and makes this convergence possible. So it's kind of the most simplest way put. It gives AI the perfect search engine that operates on trusted information, and that is the DKG in this case. And to add upon the three topics you mentioned, there's actually a fourth problem that comes from AI going a little bit further, which is called model collapse. As basically now with AI, we can generate plausible looking data very quickly and easily and cheaply. Basically, we're on track to reach a point where there's going to be more synthetic generated data by AI than actually real data generated by people and well, basically non-AI very soon. So when that happens, actually the expectation is that LLMs will deteriorate. There's a lot of research showing this, where LLMs essentially, when they start training on their own data, and that's already happening. For example, Grok, they had this case happen. They've seen like KPIs go down. It starts hallucinating more basically, and that's where the DKG can help quite a bit, because if you base the answers in a knowledge base that is trusted and verifiable versus, and you can actually sift through synthetic and non-synthetic data, then you tackle this fourth problem, which is the model collects problem, which is coming. It's just around the corner, basically.
So in the OriginTrail solution to this, the decentralized knowledge graph, is this where the DRAG, the decentralized retrieval augmented generation, comes into play? Is this part of what helps these AI models know what is the best source of knowledge to pull from to make the answers to your questions or solutions to your problems more accurate?
Yeah, it definitely does. And we've done quite a few comparisons by now between having using the AI system such as OpenAI without OriginTrail's DKG or the DRAG. And you can see that oftentimes the just using purely LLM, the answer or the result you get is very much hallucination. It's not precise. Whereas when you are using the verifiable facts, so the DRAG, what it essentially does, you're able to extract facts, you're able to extract information with a clear information lineage, information provenance. And you can then, when you see the result using an LLM, see where exactly the information is coming from, and you can go into the guts of each information piece and do a little bit of an inspection yourself, just to make sure that the LLM provided you with a result that is based on verifiable information. And that's hugely important. And this is, kind of a DRAG in a nutshell, decentralized retrieval-augmented generation. We also know about, or more people know about, the retrieval-augmented generation, which is a kind of a centralized way of doing it. And the main value proposition of doing it in a decentralized fashion is exactly what Jan LeCun stated. And we also used his statement in a white paper that for AI systems to actually work, the knowledge needs to be, the information needs to be crowdsourced. And the way you provide an incentivization layer for information to be crowdsourced, we need decentralization. That's one aspect, one value proposition. And of course, the decentralized retrieval-augmented generation, the DRAG, also gives you this verifiability. And anyone can actually look into the decentralized knowledge graph and also comment and gets to know the identity even of a publisher of any information. So the DRAG based on the DKG essentially follows the I guess the need that is becoming strikingly apparent in the AI world. Branimir mentioned model collapse. You cannot base AI systems solely on synthetic data, and we have an inflation of synthetic data. So in a way, real world data is becoming more and more appreciated. If data is a new asset class, or knowledge is a new asset class, we can therefore conclude that knowledge, verifiable knowledge or verifiable data, is being more and more appreciating. It's being it's becoming more scarce and therefore more valuable, because on the other hand we have an inflation of synthetic data. And yeah, OriginTrail is at the epicenter of it, and we're really looking forward to be adding more foundational components to what OriginTrail does. So Verifiable Internet in itself, it's not just our work, it's a joint, it's a common project that has to be I guess carried out not just by us, but also by other builders who are not just using the DKG, but also participating in other components. And we're also collaborating with many of the teams and adding new integrations, such as the Chainlinks integration today, expanding the depth of integrations over there. And also previous week, we added an integration for NVIDIA's build ecosystem, and before that some other integrations done not only by our team but the teams that are joining us and building on top of the DKG. So overall, the Verifiable Internet for the AI is a collective effort it's a collective effort, because there is no single company or a project that can tackle such a huge issue and such a huge challenge that AI presents. And we're looking forward to having more teams and even investors joining the ecosystem. So not only holding the utility tokens, but actually what we're seeing right now is we have important groups joining our ecosystem, holding the tokens, using the tokens for utility purposes. And the month of March has been historically one of the most, skyrocketing month in terms of the utilization of OriginTrail and its utility tokens for the very purpose that we described before. So verifiability of information, ownership, and essentially inclusiveness in terms of building the wealth of verifiable knowledge together.
So I'll throw in a quick question here. I can't figure out how to pin this. Maybe Martina, you can pin this question about the best way to join the ecosystem. I don't seem to have the function this time. But somebody on YouTube was asking just quickly, what's the best way for people to join the ecosystem? Is there someone to reach out to? Is there a Discord to join? How should people get involved?
Yeah, anyone can join a Discord. If you also join Telegram, you'll see people are very friendly in there. They're willing to help you out when it comes to setting up nodes, when it comes to delegating a stake of a utility token to strengthen the network. Also, when it comes to building new stuff, you'll be quickly appointed to the right channel, to the right people in Telegram, even towards the team. You can also find wealth of information on our website, OriginTrail.io, and from there on, you can figure out what exactly is that you want to build. And also yesterday, we have launched an innovative concept called IPO. And it's not the IPO that you typically think about. It's essentially an initial Paranet offering. And a Paranet is a collective of the AI-ready knowledge that you perhaps might want to bring into the DKG. And even more so, you'll be incentivized. So meaning you'll be getting some rewards for creating a valuable knowledge, for mining the valuable knowledge. So there are incentives on both ends of the ecosystem. So it really pays off to join OriginTrail early on. And we're still in the early days. So everybody that have joined and are joining the OriginTrail ecosystem are in many ways pioneers.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great transition then into what I wanted to ask about next, which was so you mentioned earlier that this is a collaborative project, it's open source. Building the verifiable internet for AI requires, a lot of people working together for this to come to fruition. And one of the ways that it seems like this is going to happen is through this idea of the Paranet. You just mentioned the initial Paranet offering, which was just announced yesterday. So can you give us like an initial, and explain it like I'm five, an ELI5 explanation. What exactly is a Paranet? And then how do these Paranets, this idea, the Paranet structure, how does that help in building out this future of the verifiable internet?
Yeah, I'll try to explain it from my angle. So historically, the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph has been typically used by organizations that wanted to convey, or project more trust into their products and services by also opening up and share information within their networks, or even share information with consumers. And even still, we have a growing number of cases where companies are using OriginTrail to build consumer-facing application. And one such a cool consumer-facing application, we just saw the commercial, is coming out in the next couple of days. So that's, let's say, a more enterprise way of using a decentralized knowledge graph and bringing knowledge, AI-ready knowledge to the people so that they can understand products, services better. And on the other hand, so we have individuals, collectors of people, even DAOs who wish to, let's say, advance decentralized science, and they need to somehow muster all the knowledge, all the data they can from that topical area that they're interested in. This is where the concepts such as an IPO, so initial paranet offering really gives them a way to create a genesis collection of knowledge that can not only be created and enshrined into the DKG and then made available for the AI systems to be used and to be more effective, more precise, and so on. But from the get-go, they can instill the business model in their collectives, in their DAOs, by launching a so-called IPO, initial paranet offering, proposing the idea to our community, and then our community decides whether such a collective, such a collection of knowledge assets encapsulated into an IPO makes sense. And this is when, if the idea makes sense, the community would approve and create an allocation of funding for such a collective, such an IPO. And the collective does not, of course, receive the funding immediately, but rather they receive funding for the knowledge assets created as knowledge assets are mined. So there is clear unit economics linked to creating valuable units of knowledge assets in whatever domain one wants to tackle. And just since introducing the IPOs yesterday, we already introduced and announced, together with our partners from ID Theory, the first IPO that is going to take place on the DKG. And conveniently, the first IPO taking place on the DKG taps into the decentralized science space. So check them out, the ID Theory. They're really a cool bunch, and we're really proud to be making history together with them. Perhaps guys would want to add something, because the IPO, there can be a 360 explanation to what it is, and how the knowledge is being incentivized, almost like the economies are, or the nations are incentivizing the production of whatever products and services. And in this case, what we do here, and actually what the protocol does, it incentivizes the growth of knowledge, the verifiable knowledge on the DKG.
Yeah, I guess the biggest of zoom outs that we can do, it's humanity's way of guiding which knowledge field between the competing fields should be developed first, and where should we kind of point those neuro rewards for mining to go, to create new knowledge, to mine new knowledge. And it's in a way the embodiment of the verifiable internet for AI, because it puts knowledge first. So when we're looking at this kind of different models achieving this and that, and the fight of the models, where we see really the larger battle long term to really play out, ideally is going to be on the knowledge, because it's going to be much more inclusive, because then we don't have 2-3 big companies fighting who's going to have the biggest model, but we'd rather have an inclusive way of endless amounts of paranets being able to create topical suggestions for knowledge development and creation, and then that knowledge be the foundation for AI solution and services that they create, or also others can build on top of them. So this is taking the kind of the approach really where the knowledge is at the driver's seat, in the driving seat of the AI revolution, trusted knowledge. So with known the knowledge that has a known issuer, that has a known owner, where the data rights are respected and not just kind of glanced over and having awkward interviews type of scenarios, but rather by design being included in the future of AI solutions. So this is the Paranets are the one of the key kind of building blocks that can make that happen, not only on a single entity kind of our single enterprise type of deployments, but rather from a community's perspective. And I'm really excited to see also so many kind of ideas starting to pop up around different paranets and being brought forward. So it's going to be very exciting to see how each of them will develop in their own pace, in their own directions, and as well how they tap into what already exists within the OriginTrail ecosystem in terms of the decentralized retrieval-augmented generation, in terms of all the integrations that have already happened and many more that will come up as well. Because at the end of the day, you know, the DKG, it's a public infrastructure where you can use it if you have TRAC. So you would use you pay TRAC, and then you can keep your knowledge assets there, and your paranet can keep growing. And now also, as you mine and create new knowledge, you can also earn neuro, and with that neuro, you're a part of that community which decides where the knowledge is going to develop in the future. And again, kind of have TRAC as electricity almost being spent on the DKG level again as new knowledge gets created. So we have these cycles kind of that are feeding each other and constantly growing the value for the paranet operators, for the knowledge miners, for the creators of services on top, as well as for the humanity at large. So I think it's a very beautiful way of really kind of going after the future of AI in a very positive direction, and in a way that, yeah, it can be very sustainable. You know, at the end of the day, like you could look at the staking that's available right now on nodes for TRAC, almost like having your own solar panel on the roof. And that solar panel is generating electricity for you to use in your house to make pancakes or something else. And if you have stake on the OriginTrail DKG nodes, you are earning network rewards so that you have then TRAC to use it as electricity to publish valuable knowledge on the DKG. And then, of course, be a part of paranets that you believe are the most exciting, again, to also be incentivized to do so via Neuro. So it's I think it's going to be a very exciting dynamics that's going to be playing out, and it's already showing a lot of interest across different types of entities to be involved in the paranets, and even the ones that we saw yesterday. I'm super excited about decentralized science. I mean, they're going after some of the biggest challenges that we have out there, which traditionally couldn't be tackled because of the certain limitations of the systems that we had in place. But now you would have motivated, incentivized knowledge miners to create new knowledge on the scientific fields, scientific research, and then use that knowledge with AI agents and AI solutions to create new and fresh knowledge. I mean, it's just it's a very, very exciting period in time. And like Žiga said, you know, you guys, if you're listening to this and if you're taking part in different ways, you're very much the pioneers of the whole field, and there's plenty to be excited about.
So will these just be on NeuroWeb and people will be incentivized with Neuro? Or is the idea that as the multi-chain future of OriginTrail, the verifiable internet evolves, that then you'll have an IPO also on Gnosis chain or on Ethereum or Bitcoin or I don't know, wherever else? Or is there like a reason that these are most efficient and effective on NeuroWeb?
The vision has always been multi-chain, and the reason why multi-chain makes most sense is because of resiliency. That's one, and number two, because you can gain more users. You have users spanning across different chains. Certainly, we're integrating like functionalities or new models on one chain at a time, so we test them properly, and then we migrate and expand to other chains. For instance, we have just a month ago launched a delegated staking on Gnosis chain, and delegated staking has really proven to be like a very important feature for our users. Just one number that like speaks to the fact over 30 million of TRAC utility token has been brought to Gnosis for delegated staking purposes and for running nodes. So this is one such example where, whilst the division is multi-chain, we integrate each new model on one chain first, we test it out, we see if there's traction, and then we expand to additional chains. And we have the same idea about the initial Paranet offerings. Of course, the rewards for Paranets are native to the chain that we're using in this case, which is NeuroWeb on Polkadot. The reward is called, Neuro Token. However, in not that much distant future, you'll be able to mine knowledge assets on several other chains, and then, of course, receive rewards on the native chain NeuroWeb, but still being able to create wealth or a collective of knowledge assets on whichever chain you deem most useful, let's say most compatible with your business model. You might want to sell the knowledge, you might want to, because the knowledge assets in essence are also knowledge NFTs. So there is this mechanics involved that allows you to sell the knowledge as an NFT, and you might want to expose your collective of knowledge to chains which have more established marketplaces and so on. So we're trying to give users as free hands as possible while still testing out the components on one chain at a time and then expanding.
I have so many questions. I don't know where to start. I guess on the partnerships, you mentioned a few of them. Obviously, you mentioned the Chainlink or integrations. Excuse me. You mentioned the Chainlink integration that was announced today. You mentioned NVIDIA. Obviously, there was the meeting with Google. We had a question on YouTube about Grok being integrated with ChatDKG. If I said that name correct, I don't think I've ever said Grok out loud, so hopefully that's how you say it. So you've already mentioned some of them, so rather than asking you to just repeat the list, although you're certainly welcome to, I want to kind of ask a slightly different question, which is, when you go to these different platforms and projects, or if they reach out to you, what's like the light bulb moment that they have where they think, oh, this is something cool that we should actually get involved with?
Yeah, we have light bulbs all over the place, not just with integrations, but also with new partners using the technology. The technology has like a very wide applicability. So right now, the ideas or the imagination is not really a bottleneck. It is rather, let's say, our own capacity to expand and have more integrations, even more, partnerships using the OriginTrail and the verifiable web for AI. So we're adding integrations as we go, taking into consideration bandwidth. I believe we're quite fast in it. However, we're also inviting other teams to add to those integrations, and we've had quite a lot of interesting integrations already taken place. A couple of months ago, Microsoft's engineer who used to work with us even integrated Microsoft Copilot based on OpenAI, launching a solution called DKG Copilot. So we try to add integrations, but at the same time, we invite others to co-build. OriginTrail is an open source project, same as NeuroWeb AI. So anyone can come in, can propose a solution, and creates an integration. And that's really one of the biggest advantages of OriginTrail. It's modularity. And this is why many users, partners, tech companies have light bulbs popping up all around them when we talk.
You must have a very well lit office at the OriginTrail headquarters. So to zoom out a little bit, if the verifiable internet for AI is decentralized through the decentralized knowledge graph and DRAG. How do you ensure? And there's the issue that these traditional AI models have, which is where they spit out these hallucinations, this misinformation, their bias, etc. How do you ensure that the data that goes into the DKG, the knowledge assets themselves, are actually good and reliable pieces of knowledge? Like, is that where the tokenomics and incentivization comes in, where like if your knowledge is bad and then you just people won't use it and there won't be an incentive to mine that knowledge? Or is there some other sort of control in place to, like, I mean, it's decentralized, so I imagine there probably isn't like a grand filter that filters out what is bad and good data going in. So just kind of curious what the approach is and what the system has in place to make sure that the best knowledge and most accurate knowledge rises to the top and whatever is the crap kind of sinks down below.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. The tokenomics that you mentioned, it's becoming costly for you to produce garbage knowledge. And, there's penalty built in by design. And although many within our ecosystem would just wish for a lot of just, pardon my language, crappy knowledge to exist in the network because that produces positive economic benefits on one end, but on the side of the publisher, creating a garbage knowledge really is not productive from the economic point of view. And then, adding to that incentivizing quality knowledge also brings in signaling for what the quality knowledge is. And if someone marks your knowledge as, not that much quality knowledge, you'll get very little compensation, if even, you'll get anything. So we're trying to bring in economic theory, so the game theory, into the creation of, more quality knowledge. And so far from, the knowledge that's been created on the DKG, it's been quite obvious that those who are publishing it, they publish it for it to be useful, for it to be quality. In the future, though, we might see some rogue players, but mind you, we have economic sticks ready for them not to persist in creating like malicious information in the network.
Mm. So one thing that was I also alluded to in my intro, and is also touched upon in the white paper, is this idea of data ownership, and seemingly touching on intellectual property concerns. So I know that a lot of generative AI models today were seemingly trained on materials that they might not have actually had the rights to use. And then you see there's lawsuits now against various generative AI platforms from artists and the like, accusing them of using their intellectual property without permission. So in the white paper, it discusses how the OriginTrail protocol offers somewhat of a solution to this, or has its own take on how to make sure the integrity of the data, but also that it's not doesn't have the same sort of copyright potentially issues down the line. So I was wondering if one of you could speak a little bit about how copyright and intellectual property is approached, and ownership of data is approached when it comes to those knowledge assets on the decentralized knowledge graph.
I can take a stab. So when you look at the knowledge asset, one of the key component is the ownership, right? So every knowledge asset comes equipped with an NFT, which lives on a blockchain on which the knowledge asset was issued on. And that NFT represents the ownership of a particular knowledge that's tied to that knowledge asset. So that is, it's verifiable, and it gives you the right to manage that knowledge asset, which means you can update it, you can change it, or you can sell it, you can monetize it, but it's yours. So it's something that you want to make sure that what you actually put there makes sense. It makes sense from the perspective of the quality, and it also makes sense from the perspective of legality, if that makes sense. So you'd wanna ensure that what you actually publish is something that is either yours or you're able to you're able to publish in that sense. And then when we're coming to the fact that these knowledge assets are used as the foundation for AI, I would be above and beyond happy if we could have, if basically the AI model developers could point to the knowledge assets that were used to train those models, because we could, that gives you like then the full transparency, it gives you an overview. But in the solutions themselves, when we're using it, we can go even a step further. So we were talking before about the decentralized retrieval-augmented generation, which by definition gives you a toolkit with which you can literally point to the knowledge. And that means that you can also point to who the owner is, and the owner has their right to determine who and how can access that piece of knowledge. So in a way, what we're trying to, or what the OriginTrail, the DKG and knowledge assets really embody here, is the sovereignty over knowledge. So you are in the driver's seat as the owner, and not kind of just being relinquished or just being not even considered when solutions that are based on AI are created. We're flipping it around again. So we're putting the knowledge and we're putting the owners of that knowledge in the driver's seat. So again, everything obviously also has its own auditability using the trust layer of the blockchains. So nothing is really here. We have the transparency that we need to determine whether someone is a good actor or someone is a bad actor, someone's doing something in good faith or someone doing something in bad faith. So with a system like that, I would expect that someone who is keen on infringing the intellectual property would likely kind of stay away, and someone who is seeing that they can really benefit from leveraging their IP, they would be very prone to kind of access or utilize the just take their track and publish and protect their knowledge and make it available for the AI systems under the terms that they set. And again, if someone is trying to manipulate or go over something, then they have the full auditability of what really was the case. So I'd say that TRAC is your protector of knowledge here, and it's protector from the AI systems that also can interact with it again on your terms. The future should be allowing everyone to monetize their knowledge.
And to that point that you mentioned, Tomaž, well, one thing that just want to add on that is that the DKG gives all of the creators a unique capability of creating knowledge assets that both live in the domain of public and private at the same time. So you can create a knowledge asset that some of the information you want to keep as a creator and you want to preserve, let's say, some elements of it for intellectual property reasons or whatever, you can create private pieces of knowledge that are still discoverable over the DKG. Each knowledge asset has this uniform asset locator, a Web3 kind of URL, a DKG native UAL effectively, that enables you to find all of the different pieces, and in that sense gives you the maximum flexibility you can get. So you can, as a creator, you can decide is something public or private. You can decide which chain, which paranet, how you're going to connect it to other knowledge, and ultimately how you're going to monetize it. So it gives like literally endless possibilities, and it's all built on standards. So you know that when you plug it into a system that has been around the internet for a while, it will work. So it's for example, the NFT is standardized, but also all of the graph related components are also standardized on following W3C standards, which is the internet standard body, basically. So there's a lot of room and a lot of opportunity, and basically builders can explore this to like, well, limits we cannot even imagine at this point, and it's very flexible in that sense.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I have one more question I'll ask, and then I'll get to some of the questions that people submitted for the episode. But just I've already said the word zooming out, but to zoom out even further than what we've already zoomed out from, where does this concept of there being a verifiable internet for artificial intelligence, where does this fit into the big picture of the internet in general? Like, is the long-term vision for this that this will kind of supersede the internet that we think of today, that there isn't this verifiability in the same way? Is it like a companion to the internet that we have today, where you can still use, everything will still be built on the same protocols, but if you want the quote unquote truth or the verifiable version, then you go to a solution based on OriginTrail technology? Or is this like kind of a niche tool for people and projects that really want to be able to show their communities, their customers, their audience that no, we are actually have an auditability, we have this verifiability? Yeah, so I guess like where, if this verifiable internet, it gets built out in the way that you dream and imagine and hope and are working toward, kind of like where does it fit into the way that people will be interacting with the internet and technology into the future?
Yeah, that's a very philosophical question, very good one. I think it's not just about verifiable internet for AI as a kind of a foundational layer, which brings together builders in order to ensure verifiability of information. It is also, in a way, a different kind of world order that we want to see, which is based on verifiability. And the humanity can only progress if we are in this constant search of or pursuit of truth, or at least being able to verify the facts, verify the information, provenance, when we're making decisions, when we're buying stuff, when we're developing, when we are making a research. And in a way, without this ability, many of the things that humanity hopes to achieve will essentially decay. When we went into the Web3 space, and for the most part of the decade of us being active here, it's been humans who are producing bullshit and lies, and it was about human character that contributed to poor trust and transparency. Of course, there was an aspect of bad data. So this human character, or the bad character, has always been the same. What we see now, with the advent of AI, is that AI is essentially becoming the biggest bullshit producer, and this is where adding to the bad character of, or at least the part of the humanity's bad character, which is pretty much constant, and adding this capability of with the AI being able to produce massive amounts of not just garbage but also misinformation, disinformation. The verifiable internet for AI comes in as not just an aspirin, but essentially a drug that can cure the cancer of misinformation and disinformation of the future. Humans are truth-seeking entities or individuals, and if they want to thrive and survive even in the future, they must somehow base their decisions on a layer which gives them that ability. So from a philosophical standpoint, it is somewhat existential for the humanity in the future.
And I think you pointed out a really important thing here, which is it's a key new layer. When we got the internet, well, first we got Ethernet, invented by Bob Metcalfe, which connected locally machines, and it actually defined protocols on these lower layers for exchanging information. Then we got more and more layers. So you guys, using, for example, HTTPS protocol right now, we communicate and we got this podcast going on. And then ultimately, when the internet was designed, it lacked this verifiability layer. It actually even lacked the security layer at the time. Up until recently, HTTPS wasn't like used everywhere, and it wasn't as secure. So point being is that it's not going to be a niche thing. It's going to be an overarching layer on top of the infrastructure that exists and the evolving infrastructure. Just as HTTP was superseded by HTTPS, things will be built out and grow. But in terms of the technology, it's going to become effectively de facto the interaction layer. Interaction in terms of both us as humans ubiquitously using some form of AI to have better user experience to interact with the internet, but also not just AI, obviously the way AI works now, obviously providing these value propositions we're talking about for the past hour here, being able to source to find the actual context and meaning and the verifiability that comes with it. So it's going to be an all ubiquitous thing, and that's why this paper tries to explain the core elements to it, and that's why we're here today. Tomaž, I think you also wanted to add something. I'm sorry if I jumped into your words. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's I'm just seeing it maybe as an evolutionary thing, so not like a phase thing that you'll just do a update of your app and it's going to be a new internet. It's just that this is going to be so much more powerful. It's undoubtedly, like Žiga mentioned, we have AI dominating now, and it's going to keep on dominating. And AI loves DKG, to be honest. Like, it loves it because it has integrity, so it can check stuff much easier than a human can. It can it can check the ownership, it can check verifiability, it can check the connectivity, who's it connected to. It can use tokens very easily as well. So it's very useful. Like that, all this stuff is machine ready. And AIs are going to be prolific users of the DKG, and people are going to be the beneficiaries of it. So as that's going to be growing, this convergence of crypto and incentives around crypto, internet, the connectivity it brings, and AI as just the usability like powerhouse that it is, it's going to be a growing evolution of how we interact with technology in the future that is going to slowly make everything else kind of like obsolete or fringe or niche in a way. And this is going to be the mainstream. So the paranets that are building out today, the staking that we're setting up, the incentives that are setting out, it's how we're defining what we want the future of the internet to shape up with, and it's a collaborative effort. It should be. It shouldn't be left to a few entities to kind of just make a run for the highest valuation and the biggest model in this or that way. It should be a collaborative thing where knowledge is at the driving wheel, and the DKG can make that happen for you. So I'm excited for the verifiable internet for AI.
So then it seems like similar to the internet that we're used to, where people have zero clue how anything works in the back end. They just log onto their Facebook and send their mama cat pic or whatever. That the verifiable internet, that maybe you don't even need to also understand unless you want to participate and get rewarded for being a part of the infrastructure that is the backbone of this verifiable internet. That the average person might not even need to understand how OriginTrail works or the DKG works. They'll just be at, like, to use the example of the restaurant that has the OriginTrail integration. Like, you'll just go to a restaurant, you'll scan a QR code, and you'll be able to ask it a question, and you'll be like, "This is awesome. This is much better than what I was doing before. So I'm going to use this app, or I'm going to come back to this restaurant." Where it's just like HTTP. It's just in the back end, and it just works really well.
You're like, today you're not clicking on scam links, I mean, I hope you're not. Like, you just won't be using that. That's
for
a
yourself.
niche fringe thing, hopefully, or like it's becoming, right? But now this is the same thing is going to happen. You're just going to have more better trusted solutions popping up, and what we're seeing today is just like we're scrapping the surface. They're super exciting implementation, and I love them. I think they're really good at showing the value, but still I believe that there's a lot of creativity that's going to get unlocked with these types of setup. And again, like this is a whole new field of solutions and industries being built out, which are hard to predict, but the the hypotheses are getting validated by the day.
Mm-hmm. So we're at an hour here. So let me get through and ask some of these AMA questions that didn't come up as a part of the main conversation we just had. Feel free to, I guess, I got a few of them, so maybe give us slightly shorter answers. First question is from Stu, who asks, are there any plans for building a marketplace for node runners where they can buy and sell and swap their node tokens? And as I understand it, these node tokens are a result of the delegated staking process.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many ideas as to what could be developed, but the main arc to provide resiliency through delegated staking has been built by us, and such marketplaces, they can be built, but they can really be built very fast by anyone else, because the stake in itself is represented by a token, and token marketplaces can easily be built by anyone else. So if you want such a marketplace, I would suggest a bunch of people come together, and I'm sure there's a very compelling business model potentially behind it that could render such a development quite lucrative.
Or just use an existing one, since, like I said, the technology is built on standards. So the node tokens are essentially ERC20 share tokens, as they're called. Any DEX that you can find that supports ERC20 tokens, and pretty much all of them support it, you can use and go ahead and start a market. It's there. So the composability is built in.
There you go. Go build it yourself. That's the answer. I think you may have answered this already in the conversation we already had, but is there a specific timeline for when staking will launch on NeuroWeb, or is it just dependent on sort of how things naturally evolve and how everything goes on Gnosis chain?
Yeah, so the expansion to multi-chain is planned in the terminus phase of the new roadmap, and it's an ongoing effort. So when it will conclude or reach its fruition, it's still open. But the efforts are definitely there for this to happen within the next, or during the spring.
Mm. So again, another topic that we touched upon a little bit earlier, but we got a question from Old Prospector Gus Chickens, quite the name, who was asking about the token prices. Like you were saying earlier in the conversation, that it's becoming expensive to publish faulty or BS knowledge assets. So he's wondering if an increase in the cost or the price of tokens and publication will have an impact on the ability to spin up paranets and widely deploy them.
Yeah, I mean there's a market mechanism that sets the price, right? So that's the way that it kind of functions. So if there's going to be demand for a certain amount, that there potentially could be the nodes that are adapting in that way, and the supply and demand will meet, and they'll make things happen. So I think that TRAC is utility. It is like electricity, so you kind of you have to figure it out when it makes, and how really you can use it best. And now with the staking, there's another element that you can take into account to ensure that you can use that electricity in a renewable and sustainable way, even if you are a power user and then you want to have your paranet churning out a lot of knowledge assets. So I think that it's a matter of market mechanics, and the market at the end of the day always finds an equilibrium that makes the use cases available. So yeah, I think it's I would say you need to kind of just work it in a way, I I would expect a lot of solar panels to exist. So, and that's the way kind of to think about really the tokenomics around track if you're a power user. So it makes sense for you to have put on the panel, let the sun shine, get the electricity flowing, and then you can publish a lot. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Hope that answers it. But yeah, market.
So Mark is asking about some of the examples of real world adoption that are, I guess, maybe outside of the AI ones that we spoke about today. So he gives the example of aid trust. So where do you see aid trust going in the future, or do you have any plans, or are there similar projects that are kind of interesting ones that are happening around the world?
Yeah, A-Trust and other enterprise projects are really evolving nicely into something much more powerful, because meanwhile, the enterprise suite of products, if you will, received an important update, which is based on a growing number of AI tools that companies are now using, which makes their work tremendously more easy. And it also brings more value out of the applications based on the DKG they're using. For instance, back in the days, we had to build several different interfaces for, let's say, traceability, for supply chains. And now the supply chains are actually receiving an important assistant, AI assistant, whereby you can ask anything about any shipment, about any event in a supply chain that transpired using an AI solution. And not only that, using the same kind of interface, you can build a solution to allow you for you to be able to construct financial reports, ESG reporting very fast, using the facts on the ground within your supply chains. And supply chains are like very cumbersome sometimes, because they're not just chains, they're networks. And it does appear that AI solutions are kind of a natural fit to the supply chains as networks, or to the enterprise use cases, because they can really quickly improve the effectiveness and efficiency in a work. And we're seeing that across the board, within not only the medicine supplies, but also within the food supply chains. Right now, we're also becoming a part of the largest European project that has been approved so far, that OriginTrail has been involved in, and we've been involved in many different, from food supply chains, construction, like international consortia that are supported by the institutions such as European Union, in the amounts of like from 5 to even 20 million euros. And now we're also tapping into like very interesting areas such as aviation, where, as much as you're following the Boeing situation, transparency, trust is highly important in that sector. And the DKG, as in many areas, has a very important role to play here, because we all want to fly safely, and we're really looking forward to see how we can advance safety by, together with our partners, European partners, build frameworks, build solutions that can really elevate safety within the aviation space sector industry.
Mm-hmm. And then one more question from DKG Nub, whatever that means, who asks about what some of the challenges are that OriginTrail and Trace Labs faces when growing something, a protocol like OriginTrail. And then I'll add in, what are some of the kind of interesting opportunities that maybe people aren't thinking about that comes along with growing a company like Trace Labs and a sort of vast open source protocol like OriginTrail?
Yeah, there are definitely two speeds. and I think the actual real world work is underappreciated within the Web3 space. It's much easier to churn out the ideas when the bull market is here, but it is far more sophisticated, and it takes more energy, and I guess trying to fit the cause if you're trying to consistently build and deliver real world solutions. And I guess the one of the challenges in this kind of environment is, how do you run fast when you have actual clients, actual partnerships? So right now I'm talking about the Trace Labs, which is the core development company of the OriginTrail protocol, and also the NeuroWeb, which are ecosystem, open source ecosystems. At the same time, though, Trace Labs also is employing the open source technology such as OriginTrail to deliver value to partners, to customers. And there are two speeds. You need to play in both arenas, like real world arena, and then venturing into this crazy Web3 space. And OriginTrail is somewhat at the intersection, really validating whatever is being built. The most innovative stuff that's being built is also validated in real world. And that's, in a way, we need to work harder than others, but at the same time, it really cements validation, because it's always tested out, it's always put to use in a real world scenario.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's there were some other questions that were submitted, but I think that we basically answered them during the course of our conversation. I see one question coming on YouTube asking about, I'll sneak this in. I'm being nice today, so you're lucky, product of Jack. Just asking about NVIDIA, the likelihood that NVIDIA will use OriginTrail technology.
Yeah, so this is a question: what's the object and what's the subject here? I mean, we've done integrations with many different technological providers, and there are instances where OriginTrail is being employed as a substrate for digital twins. And when it is being used as a substrate for digital twins, this is where technologies such as NVIDIA's or any other come into play, depending, of course, also what kind of technology is already being used as a legacy technology by the partners working with OriginTrail. It's not a straight answer, but I guess it's yes, but at the same time, it can be much more than just one sole provider's technology to which DKG is integrated with in the context of the digital twin.
Well, guess that's a wrap then. That's all the questions that I had, all the questions that the audience had. We got through all of them. That's very exciting. And I mean, I don't even, it's just another month. It just seems like by the time that we come back here next month, there's going to be a gazillion other things to talk about. It's kind of hard. I said this at the beginning. It's hard to prepare for this podcast sometimes, because there's just every week it feels like some new integration or some new announcement or some new service or new blockchain integration or something is always happening. So it is a very exciting time, as again, somebody who's ultimately a third-party observer and just a fan of this project. It's a very exciting time to be a member of this community, to be following y'all, seeing what you're doing. So before we wrap things up, is there just any last words that anybody wants to share that they want to leave the audience with? Otherwise, we can just call it a day.
We're not going to be making it any easier for you in the coming month. What we're going to try to do is perhaps invite partners who are using the technology or aiming to integrate to this podcast, so we can also hear it from the horse's mouth. and perhaps have a little bit more focused discussion. But yeah, I share the sentiment. I mean, weeks and months are all too short for the plentitude of things that we're churning out.
Yeah, I guess I should clarify that I was not saying that in a way where I was complaining that it's difficult to prepare. More so that it's impressive more than anything.
Well, now as IPOs start coming up, it's going to be even more interesting, I'm sure. So that's going to really show in very tangible ways with incentives how quickly all of this can grow. So really excited.
Definitely.
Thank you, Jonathan. You're a very kind scholar and a gentleman.
Exactly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's going on my resume. Straight in the mouth of Tomaž.
Very good. I can't deny it now either, so it is what it is.
It's on record.
It's all platforms everywhere.
Amazing.
Just perhaps another note. I believe every episode lands on a DKG, and you're able also to explore and ask questions about each episode. So by the time we reach episode 12, we're going to have the whole soul of the On TRAC podcast on the DKG.
There you go. Coming to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Twitter, and the DKG.
Yes.
Amazing.
So thank you, everybody, for listening in. Again, those of us who are joining us on YouTube and Twitter, those of us who will be listening or watching this later. Thank you to our dynamic co-founders, Žiga, Tomaž, and Branimir, as always. And we'll see you in a month. Stay on track.
See you on track. Thank you, John.